Anybody have anything to check in and share before we start the talk? No?
I always feel like I do, but I can't think of anything.
I can give you political news. No.
Yeah.
It's okay to have no lights if you don't
No
like.
lights?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say I'm in like an awesome transition point in my life where there are a lot of doors opening that I feel like if I'm strategic
Yeah.
in how I walk through them, that I can set myself in a good position for the next 10, 20 years. So for example, I'm looking at apartments right now, and near University of Redlands. And if you guys can just keep me in your prayers and hopes and positive vibes and manifestations for that, that'd be great, because I'm just, my parents and I have concluded that it would be really awesome for me to just transition into that, and then actually and that'd be a great stepping stone to getting more time with my daughter too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and we're gonna go this weekend, and it's been a while since I've seen her, so I'm really thinking that we're gonna go swimming at my mom's friend's house, and so I'm stoked about that. And my daughter's really developed. She got the most carefree student in her class award when everyone was graduating, and I'm like so thankful, because she does have a lot of things going on, having two families and all that, and just know that she's carefree at school, and otherwise she would be internalizing some introspections that she had at 4.5 years old. It's just really awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Okay, so you ready to go on to the program?
Yeah.
I think we should do, what's that?
Weren't you gonna say something?
Oh, well, I was just going to say that there's a certain baby blimp on its way from the UK to possibly Bedminster, New Jersey. And did you see that they did if the post is accurate, they did a GoFundMe page because it was going to be about $4,500, and they've already raised like $23,000 something.
Wow.
Isn't that funny? Who knows how they'll get it here? All right, so you ready for tonight's talk?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of ready. Let me ask you this, and this is the title. It says, problems cannot be solved at the level of them. Rise, right?
Yes.
So I have, for the rise part, I've got 2 pages, and we'll get to as much as we can of it from Science of Mind, and there's a section that is just beautiful. It's the meditation section that I've done before. And some of it we can read out loud and use as affirmations. But I think before we do that, I like to just dig a little bit deeper in this, because this is a deep one. Problems cannot be solved at the level of them. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Does anybody want to throw some of the issues of maybe life or human problems that we could let me just try to throw it in a pile if you want to throw it out there.
Well, I think of the law of attraction, and I think of what Abraham says, that when you focus on the problem, you're not creating the answer.
Okay, so let me just repeat it so that it's in the microphone. Holly, you're saying that, as Abraham says, when you're focusing on the problem, you're not creating at the level of the answer.
Right.
Okay, because I'm
You
not
said
sure
it
that.
better.
Is that correct?
Yeah, you said it better.
So well, in Science of Mind, there's a term too that's very common, and it says, what you resist, persists.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? What are some of the earthly problems?
Debt.
Debt? That's a good one.
Pain.
Pain. Now, is there a specific kind of pain or all pain?
Oh, I think
Self-inflicted.
a lot of different kinds of pain.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I love that you said that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different kinds of pain.
Emotional,
Oh yeah.
physical, spiritual, mental.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the human condition. So I'll repeat that in case it didn't tape properly, is Reverend Deanna shared pain. And that could be emotional, physical, spiritual, mental. I mean, man, I think I might be an expert on pain.
Oh.
No, it's okay. I learned from it. That's the other thing about this is I thought by talking about it, problems cannot be solved at the level of them. It's so easy to just go right to what we know in our teaching, right? But if you're not ready to go to the, it's easy for me to open the book and go to the meditations. It's easy for me to do a 5-step affirmative prayer treatment. And at the same time, you know what? Maybe there's a lesson in the pain. Maybe the problems are showing up for us to ask questions of the problems, and do we do that? And maybe the issues are showing up so that we can address them one at a time and say, what is the lesson that you're trying to show me? Because what I do know, and I've heard in all my classes, is lessons are repeated until learned. And that I can just call them spiritual lessons. Spiritual lessons are repeated until learned. For example, and I'm not proclaiming this for this person, but there's a family member we found that's Ed's niece, and she has had a couple different relationships, and today I noticed a post where she said she's taken. And I'm like, dang it. Because I kept telling her, before you're allowed to go into any other relationship, they have to pass the uncle test. We didn't get asked again. At the same time, there's no person, if we're talking about like romantic pain or loneliness, or because I've seen also posts that said, nobody will ever, come into my life. You know what I mean? I've seen some tragic proclamations and posts, especially when it comes to love and romance. That can be as a spiritual being having a human incarnation, the romantic pain of loss can be huge. It can be one that can take a lifetime to recover from. And so we can, in my opinion, not look to a person to solve or complete us. Rather, in my opinion, to have our own wholeness within ourselves, finding another person that is compatible, that is another whole person, then you have two whole beings that can, align. That's just my own opinion. And I learned from my own particular pain, it felt really good. It felt like a really important relationship. It only lasted about 1.5 years, and it was a tremendous amount of pain to recover from. In fact, that pain is what led me to even find Science of Mind, further study Course in Miracles with Marianne Williamson, get my way to Agape with Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, and sign up for all the classes. To do what Science of Mind does, that's amazing, is it offers you the opportunity to take responsibility for you. Who else is going to do it for you? And all the classwork, and all the introspection, all the journaling, all the reading, all the writing, all the practice of your prayers, all the purposeful intentions in your prayer treatments, and then the 5 steps lined out. The more and more you practice, which is part of the word practitioner, right? It's the practice. We're always learning, we're always growing, and as Holmes says, this teaching is always meant to be open at the top, right? It was never meant to be the final word. And so as quantum physics and other things are happening now, we can be open and receptive and aware to all modalities of healing, right? And all truths of all great spiritual teachings, as long as they have a capital T. So to me, when I say they have a capital T, that means they're a spiritual truth. It's a law. It's not up for debate or arguments. You know what I'm saying? There's so much non-truth that's happening now that when I say spiritual truth, I say with the capital T, and that's found through the thread. It is the common thread of all the great world religions, period. And so when you are coming up with universal law, you can practice in your own life by aligning with it, right? Proclaiming it as yours. And it is yours, just because you're here. Just because you are incarnate at this time. And guess what? I believe we may all be needed at this time, especially at this time. For truth seekers, we have a responsibility. There's another amazing quote from Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith that says, from his mouth, an expanded mind cannot retract. An expanded mind cannot retract. So now that you've done some of the work, you've done some of the introspection, or you're about to, I'm asking you to be willing to. You go to summer dialogues, you go to the prosperity classes that are here, you go to Wednesday night services, you practice meditation, you go to Sunday services, you can chant in your house, you can study whatever you want as long as it's truth with a capital T and it works for you. Are you willing to align yourself with it? And I'm asking you to practice the ones that are most in front of you now. And so what other issues? I've got debt, I've got pain, I've got I wrote down illness, which is maybe at the physical body temple. Are there any others?
Divorce.
Divorce. Okay. And that could be, is it happy that you're divorced or painful divorce?
Depending on who you talk to.
Right. It depends on who you talk to, right? One person might say, oh, thank goodness, right? And the other person might be,
Someone might say that the original plan of the marriage is not divine because it was forced. It's a forced relationship.
oh, wow.
And then when the divorce happens, there's some spiritual religious debate, but sometimes you feel alleviated afterward because you felt trapped.
Okay. So, in essence, you just fulfilled my prophecy right? With the very deep philosophical sharing that Ellen is bound to throw in the pile. I'm not even going to try to handle all of it, but I'll handle some of it because it's too much for me to take all the way in. But I want to learn more about what you're saying, and I'm not even afraid to have a whole talk about relationships because I think sometimes too relationships, whether even if they're romantic, I don't know that they're not like just repeated from other times. Like, did you ever meet anybody and then you just feel so comfortable and so
Soul family.
Huh?
Soul family.
Full family?
Soul.
Soul family, yes, soul family. I mean, I've had that. Has anybody else had that?
Oh yeah.
Where you just feel immediately comfortable, immediately safe, and then even though it didn't last a long time, maybe it did last as long as it needed for me to learn the next lesson.
Right.
You know, there was even a time in this romantic relationship where, and this goes back a long time ago. I'm not going to say exactly when in case that person ever watches the video. But I don't think they would. But I was like, not following, but like, there was a life of partying back in the 90s that Spirit would not let me do. Like, even taking a pill, it wouldn't kick in for me. I mean, most people, if you take a pill, it will happen, right? You can go into the party mode. For me, I had to do like a whole, it's almost like before I speak on any Wednesday or Sunday, I have to do certain things or I won't come. Right? Shave, shower. And actually for me now, one of the easiest things is exercise. Because whatever the endorphins or whatever it gets, usually I can go from even despair to be able to face everybody with at least a neutral or positive message. It's not always a natural state. I don't want you to think it's always natural, but it does seem natural, doesn't it? For those people that think they know me, they think that I'm always happy or perky or energetic or hyper or whatever. It doesn't always have to be positive adjectives. At the same time, I am smart enough to not face this lectern without doing my work. And what I was saying to you in a very personal terms about the taking of the pill is I had to do I can't remember exactly all the things, but there was a ritual. Oh, it's a ritual. That's the word that I meant to say. I had to do X, Y, and Z, these 3 things or whatever it is. And then I actually had to ask permission, was one of them, of Spirit to be humanly so, I don't know. And then, so then in the middle of one of them, I got picked up from the dance floor in the palm of the hand of Spirit. Oh my gosh. And lifted, and it said, they can do this, you cannot. It was not judgmental. It was not saying you are special. It was not saying I have other plans for you. It wasn't any of that. It was the most loving, incredible thing I think I'd ever experienced. Is literally in the middle of a sea of people dancing, having the time of their life, right? I had to have spiritual lesson. Well, it's all spiritual. Because some of the things that people would take would be to show oneness, right? Like I even had people in the middle of it ask me a question and I would take them completely seriously. And then I remember another time where I saw somebody who I hadn't seen for years, and then they disappeared and I never saw them again. And like, but you know, like for that 30 seconds, it was like, hi, you know, like crazy euphoria of seeing somebody you hadn't seen for years. And so I thought I started to learn spiritually, and then found out that some of it was used actually in psychotherapy, anyway, to get the person to see their oneness. Even though I think you can do that without doing that, I'm just saying what happened to me in a very personal moment was this lifting up that I'll never forget. And it was not to separate me, it was just saying that my criteria was different. Does that make sense? It was incredible. Thank you for letting me share that, because that was super personal. I never thought I'd actually share that in the confines of what some people would consider a center, or right, certainly from the pulpit. It's private. And at the same time, it was profoundly spiritual, because then it made sense to me. It's like, I don't have Spirit's permission to do this. I've even known some people that can take it and it never works, because the I am is just like, no. The I am will not allow it. Okay, so I'm afraid I won't have enough time to go through all the things I want to talk about. But so when I say the topic tonight, we remember is problems cannot be solved at the level of them. Everybody, do you pretty much get what that is? Because in life, like there's some things that have been happening recently where it's like if you operate at the lowest level, which I think is our human experience, man, it can be like quicksand. Like you could just go, you know, if I tell some of the examples, it may divulge some of the privacy issues. But I mean, there's some stuff I'm going through now where you're like, what? You know, like, what? And it gets worse. If you can't, if you stayed at the level of the problem, it's never going to be solved. That's just my opinion. I'm saying my opinion. If you stay at the level of the problem, and maybe we'll take a couple of more examples of what you gave me, of how that could never solve the problem. So if I divulge what I really want to divulge tonight, it would probably break confidence. But it's really something really major. It's not good. It's not going to just get better with I believe in prayer, and at the same time, I don't believe in shortcuts. Okay, there's no hitchhiking in this teaching. There's song lyrics from Ricky Byers Beckwith. There's no hitchhiking. I can't do the work for you, although that's not true. In a spiritual mind treatment, a practitioner can know for you. And there have been powerful enough practitioners to have my knowing or the most powerful practitioner's knowing be enough to generate a healing for whoever's asking. I think it's even better when you cooperate, which is the principle of mental equivalence that Holly was referring to earlier, which we talk about all the time here, which says that when you self-treat or when you ask for assistance, you're not asking for prayer for you, you're asking for prayer about you. It's different. If you're asking for prayer, that means you don't have something. If you're asking about prayer, for a prayer about you, that means I'm just remembering your perfection. It's so much easier. Do you see the difference? So I'm asking you to be participants in rising above the level of all the problems that we spoke about, which are the human condition. And let's talk about some examples of them. We had debt. There's a lot of people who keep going in more debt, right? I had that happen in my life before where, gosh, I had multiples of everything. You can name it, I had all of it. And then I wasn't really like a good steward of all my wealth. I just wasn't. And I didn't really plan. I didn't really have a backup plan. I didn't really have plan B, C, D, or E. But in the moment, to have 2 or 3 houses and 3 or 4 cars, and we lived large, and it was awesome. And at the same time, it probably would have been good to have a plan B. Like you're talking about with the apartments or
Yes.
own properties, it's probably a good idea to consider a plan that's, A, B, C, all the way to Z, right? And then execute what feels right for you. Probably a good idea. Probably a good idea. So and at the same time, actually what I did was a bad example of debt because I just kept doing more. If one person went and bought a Land Rover, I went and made him buy me a Bentley. And it all worked out within a week. I got even. I'm like, oh, you're getting that? And no, we did. Within a month. I mean, you got that, well, I'm getting this. And actually, at that time, even got it under my name. Like just, whoop. But you pay the toll eventually if it's not well planned out. You see? So we'll have to destroy this video. It will never be posted to Facebook to be watched again. Okay. So pain, we talked about mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, right? Let's add divorce in there.
Yeah.
Add all of it. I mean, man, sometimes a divorce, even though in the moment it feels horrible, I'm not sure if it's not meant to be or there's so many trite things, right? Oh, one door closes, a window opens. I'm like, God, I don't like all that stuff. Sometimes it just hurts. Sometimes, like for me, I've told this story before from here. When I went through what I thought was the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with, it was so incredibly painful. I've never said those words out loud before to anybody. And I remember having a healer, and I've told this story where he said, why do you need to explore every ounce of your pain? And you know what? I just did, and I was okay with that. I'm going to say to everybody watching, there's not a mistake in your watching. And if you have pain, I say use pain. I say ask questions of the pain. I say inquire to the pain. What are you here to teach me? What are you here to show me? How must I learn? And you know what? Don't even put any pressure on yourself. Because it's not always like airy-fairy, like it's over in 2 minutes, like drive-through society that we expect that, we're just going to go to one meeting of some sort and it's over. But I will say this, because it matches my topic. When I went through a pain of a separation of a relationship and also lost one of my first partners to an illness when I was 35, I'm like, wow, I went to grief group. And this is not to judge those groups, but for me, when I was there, I'm like, even a month later, everybody was at the same story. I'm like, I just heard that same story from last week and the week before and the week before. I wanted to find a way for me that would work to get me out. I didn't want to keep my story. And I think that's part of spiritual healing. That's part of spiritual maturity. And at the same time, if you need to stay there in the grief, at the same, maybe for the other people, and I'm not, again, separating myself saying you're better, you're more advanced. That's not what I'm saying. For those people, they may need to repeat their grief story every week for 2 years. That's none of my business. This is not saying somebody's good because you can, be done with the grief class in 2 sessions or 1 session. You can't phone in true spiritual work. You cannot phone it in. You cannot fake it. I want to say that. You cannot fake spiritual growth. You cannot fake, being done with pain. You can't fake it. It's going to be done with you when it's done with you. You're going to be done with it when you're done with it. And some pains are so big. I've known many people, not only in my family and relatives, that have lost children. I think that's got to be, one of the hardest pains. And I'll say, for me, in working with some of these people would be, and for myself, because the way I work with others is sometimes I have to experience it myself. I, for myself, learned to include it. I just said, instead of, burning love letters or doing whatever, that's just kind of craziness, I started to draw a circle around my pain and include my pain in the perfection that I embrace as me. I am different than you. I am different than you. Do you see? That's the beauty of all of us. And I'm going to encourage anybody who's struggling with a problem, a perceived problem, pain, the worst pain, see what it feels like to include it. See what it feels like to embrace it. See what it feels like to not make a friend of it, because it doesn't have to be positive, but you can neutralize it. I think you can neutralize the pain. I did when I include it more. You can see I still have some pain, just in the way I'm talking and in my inflection, right? It feels amazing to even be able to talk about any of it, because I'm releasing even more of it, right? And it's old pain. I'm not embarrassed to tell you. And I've seen spiritual leaders of communities with such pain. I've seen people pray, or have meetings that blew up, and it has to come from pain. So I just want to encourage everybody to see what it feels like to draw a circle around it, not label it good or bad, just say, hey, maybe this pain is a part of me. That's all. I'm not completely done. Illness. Okay, so if you're ill, right? Even if you're not ill, there's wellness, right? What's the opposite of illness? Wellness. So a lot of times in our classes and in our foundation classes and the practitioner classes, one of the quickest, easiest things we do is when somebody comes forth for prayer, we usually go right to the opposite, right? I am okay with that. I'm also okay with not shortcutting. So for what are we doing for wellness? So if illness comes forth, well, are you doing anything for wellness? I don't know. Are you eating well? Are you exercising at all? Do you even just walk? Do you take herbs? Do you take medications? So our teaching allows for all of it. I'm going to suggest that you try, if you haven't already, blessing, if you're taking anything. Blessing any treatment. Blessing any caregiver or appointment that you might have in advance. You can send, with your intention, love and light energy to be, I always do this one for anybody going to a doctor, is let them see the majesty that you are. Let them see who they're dealing with. Let them know in truth that the divine is at hand right before them. So that even all the clutter sometimes of just getting an appointment, right? If you do the prayer work in advance and send that love and light intelligence to make a way where you may not be able to see the way, these things can manifest. Like somebody just recently called and, we have the same doctor. I was put off till like July 23rd, but I don't have an emergency. I'm just going because they asked me, because I've been on a prescription for high cholesterol or whatever for 2 years, and then to continue if they want to see. So, but the other person really needs to see a doctor, and there was a cancellation, so they got in the next day. So I'm just saying, use our treatment, use our teaching to make a way. You don't always have to know the way. The more powerfully you believe that there is a way, that Spirit might know a way because it created you perfect, whole, and complete, and a masterpiece of the divine, that's the embodiment that we do through all the classwork. So I'm not even going to probably open, I think we covered enough of it to get the gist of this, right? The next time I talk, or maybe I'll do one affirmation from the reading. The next time that I talk, I'm going to do just the 2 pages of the reading, which is all the positive. I really am okay with talking about really hard things to talk about. I'm okay with that. I am a fan of that, because to me, it's real. To me, it is real. And it is easy for anybody to stand before you and read any quote out of Science of Mind or Ernest Holmes or Abraham or any teacher, Course in Miracles. The hard part is getting in touch with what's real. Because the top title was, again, Problems Cannot Be Solved at the Level of Them. Everybody got that tonight, right? So when you're faced with that, I'm asking you to rise. That was the last word in the top title. Rise. However that looks for you, it could be different for each person. It could be that you do nothing. It could be that you just embrace that this is happening now. Or this is happening over and over and over again to me. Right? Why? It could be that you just simply start asking inquiry, questions about what's happening. It could be that you start doing your 5-step affirmative prayer treatments. It could be that you seek out a prayer line. There's amazing prayer lines. It could be that you seek out writing in a prayer treatment card here at this center, which we have a powerful practitioner core. We're happy to do prayer work about you. It could be that you seek out a one-on-one appointment with a regular traditional counselor, a doctor. Our teaching welcomes anything. It could be a chiropractor that does amazing work, right? It could be a healer. It could be a reading. I've had some amazing readings by phone with mediums that can tell you why and how you knew all these people from different lifetimes. That was amazing to go, oh, it makes complete sense. Right? Are you with me? Okay, so let's just close with the affirmation. I'm hoping more and more will have affirmations from this podium. And not shortcutting anything, but for the next time I'm going to do 2 pages. They come from this Science of Mind Meditations, and there's a great section if you want to pre-read it for next time. Page 554 and 555. Let's just say this one together. After I say it, you say it if you wish. I do know the truth and I am free.
I do know the truth.
Here's another one. I accept the fullness of my own divine well-being. That did not sound at all convincing. All right, I'll read you 3 sentences and then we'll try that one again. It's under a treatment to heal confusion or discord. I know there is a spirit in me which unfolds itself to me. And I know that this spirit, or infinite wisdom and divine love and perfect law, enlightens my consciousness and awakens within me, within the personal, the knowledge of its meaning, the realization of its presence, and the power of its law. I am conscious that this universal it is an ever-present being to me and to every man, because where the universe personifies, it becomes personal. Therefore, there is within me an immediate presence, the infinite of the finite self, all-knowing, all-wise, and forever perfect. It is this real me that I seek to vision in my thought, that I seek to embody in my consciousness. It is that me that cannot be sick, knows no lack, has no limitation, never suffered want, and cannot experience fear. And if you choose, say with me after I'm done, I accept the fullness of my own divine well-being. It's better now once as a whole sentence. I accept the fullness of my own divine well-being.
I